Who is Roberto Cappucci, and is this fragrance by him any good? If you want to find out, stick around. Hi there, welcome to Audio YouTube. My name is Mark. So tonight I'm doing a review of this fragrance called Him by Roberto Cappucci. I had no idea who he is until I did some research for this video. So Roberto Cappucci is apparently an Italian designer who does couture. His work is so significant that his clothes have been shown in museums in Europe and America, as well as in the Venice Biennale sometime in the 1980s. Now, the Venice Biennale is a huge thing in the art world, and when you look at his clothes, obviously his clothes are an exploration of the sculptural possibilities in fashion. One amazing thing that I discovered about Roberto Cappucci also is that, well, back in the 1970s, he was pursuing fashion, and then at some point, he felt that if he did fashion the way other designers did, which is to say, putting out a show, well, 2 shows every year, he discovered that for himself that was simply not going to work. And the way he pursued the practice of fashion, of design, was to just do shows when he felt like a show was ready. So there's that discipline, that devotion to the artistic side of producing designs that really makes me respect him. As for Cappucci for him, I'll do a spray. Launched in 2015, there is no named nose for this fragrance. The published notes for Roberto Cappucci Him are cacao, Turkish rose, Bulgarian rose, peony, white musk, lavender, violet, and woods. What comes forward for the most part in terms of the notes is the cacao. It is in fact a beautiful cacao. Something about the mix of that cacao with the other notes, however, produces an overwhelming, beautiful, really pleasurable experience of cola, which is unique. So I did a bit of research prior to putting it in the cart, and people compared it to Roger Enigma. Another person compared it to Dior Homme, and well, I'm sure I've tried Roger Enigma, but I just couldn't remember its scent profile. As for Dior Homme, does it smell like Dior Homme? I think that if you don't have Dior Homme and you just have a memory of Dior Homme, you might say that yes, they could indeed be compared, but if you do a side-by-side, they're not really similar. Roberto Cappucci Him is dry and it's somewhat mature. I think that anyone 34 years old and above would be happy to have a bottle of Roberto Cappucci Him. There's something about it that's mature, but it's not serious. I'm just thinking that, you know, if the ordinary 25-year-old is crazy about Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel and maybe Mont Blanc Explorer, I think this goes to a different territory. I think it harkens back to older scents by Guerlain. So it has that aura, that kind of, some would say, slightly formal. And indeed, Roberto Cappucci Him could be worn to formal events, but it's also cheerful enough to wear with just a polo shirt. You could go casual with Cappucci Him. So it's not overly serious, but there is something about it that's mature. Perhaps because it's dry. But even though it's dry, what really comes forward here is the cacao, the chocolate, which lends it a feeling of ease and a sense of being casual. So I think in terms of versatility, I think Roberto Cappucci Him is incredibly versatile, and I think it could be worn at any time of the year except for the high heat of summer. Cooler summer nights, I think, would be alright. Roberto Cappucci Him really smells more expensive than its price would suggest. If you're looking for an inexpensive, semi-formal fragrance, then I think that you certainly have to consider, especially if you are on a budget, you certainly have to consider this. It's funny that when people on YouTube do reviews of inexpensive fragrances, and if something happens to be good, they would say that this is fantastic given its price. Well, I believe that whether a fragrance is expensive or not, I think that we should be able to say if a fragrance is good or not. So, if I had to answer the question, is this a good fragrance? You know, if it were 5,000 pesos, if it were $100, would I feel as though I were cheated? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think it really does smell more expensive, and I think that it's because Roberto Cappucci, the house, does not spend anything on marketing, which is why the price could be brought down to, Christ, below $20. I think that it's massively underpriced, definitely underhyped. So whether expensive or not, is it something that I would recommend? If you're 34 years old and above, yes, I would recommend it to you. But do I think it's a hidden gem? If there's one thing that I don't like about this fragrance, it's that its projection is kind of tame. I'm not saying that there's no projection, because there certainly is. For the first 2 hours, you are going to get sillage, and in terms of performance, it actually is very long lasting, like at least 8 hours. However, there's just something about it that doesn't explode. It doesn't exactly bloom, and unlike, say, Dior Homme Parfum, it's not stunning. I would not describe it as stunning. I would, however, describe it as beautiful, and in terms of the value for money, my God, I mean, on that basis alone, I think you should get it. If you're 34 and above. For younger people who are into the aquatics, for who like Sauvage and BDC, and maybe Le Male, EDT, for people like that, maybe you're not going to like this. But if you're somebody who likes to explore fragrances and you have no prejudice against fragrances that are really inexpensive and are willing to appreciate them for what they are, then I would bet that you wouldn't regret getting Roberto Cappucci Him. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time, and if you haven't subscribed, please do.